Swap update. Everyone get your angry faces ready. This modifier will now reset your super and ability energy, special ammo, and heavy ammo, as well as remove all ammo and orbs on the ground when you change exotic or legendary armor or weapon ammo types. This does not create a level playing field. All this does is create a wider knowledge disparity in the game. Because right now, anyone can swap anything and you know it'll work. This doesn't stop you from swapping certain things. So what they have done here is they have actually just widened the knowledge gap in Destiny, where half the population of Destiny doesn't know you could do something, 40% of people aren't racing, and the final 10% have this forbidden knowledge that we know that gives us a clear advantage because this raid is balanced around people not knowing. If they don't think loadout swapping should be a thing, lock loadouts after the encounter starts. I also, like, independent of this being a bad change, I personally like loadout swapping. I think it is it's a depth of skill expression. I understand people don't like menu gameplay. That's totally fine. But this doesn't remove menu gameplay. This just means you have to jump through more hoops to do it effectively. This doesn't like satisfy the I don't like menu gameplay side of any argument. But sure, if you want the contest version of the raid to be more approachable or whatever, or you're worried about the balance of it, then sure, put in something that stops it. That's not this. This does not do that. I'm going to show you guys how I would have approached this in the old contest mode, and I'm going to show you what Bungie is stopping you from doing with the new Notswap modifier and what you can still actually do, and why the new Notswap modifier is a bad idea and only hurts those that aren't in the know and that don't know the way that you can get around it. So my loadouts for Iatros, or the Wyvern boss in Desert Perpetual contest, look something like this, where I would have like a good all-around build where my stats are kind of like middle of the road. I'd have Legend of Acurius. I would pop the cubes with Acacia. Cement Retrograde is really great for ammo generation and super generation. So that was pretty much my go-to loadout. So what we would do is we would do the general mechanics for the encounter. And then when it came time to do damage, we would switch off of our all like high tier armor with middle of the road stats. Obviously back then it was like tier 3 armor. We would swap to armor 3.0 that is way more spiky to give us a spike in armor and super. So that you cannot do anymore. You cannot swap legendary armor to legendary armor, else you will lose all of your ammo. Like pretty much what happened here. You'll lose all of your ammo. You'll lose all of your abilities. All of that sort of stuff. However, what you can do is just swap to the same set of armor. So I can still make a hot swap where instead of, I'm using the same armor and I just go bam, bam, bam. I have 3 surges on this instead, where I swap the bond now to what I would have on a normal bond. I'd have an arc reloader on this, of course, that sort of thing. And so now I can swap between these classes and I'll be fine. I'll still have all my abilities. I'll still have all my ammo. That's totally fine because I'm not swapping ammo types and I'm keeping the same armor. But what is different is the mods. And now I'm doing significantly more damage because I have surge mods. That's something that the average player might not think of. Another thing that we did in the day 1 was we had a backup swap to Lord of Wolves. You can still do that because Lord of Wolves is not swapping ammo types. So as long as I still have a special in my kinetic spot and a special in my secondary slot, and then a heavy weapon, which is of course a heavy weapon, as long as I switch like that, I can still swap to Lord of Wolves as they have written it in the TWAP. And of course I would have, solar, I'd have solar, etc. Those should actually be harmonics, but for the purpose of this video, that's fine. So I can still run like this, and then I can swap to a surge loadout like this. And then when I'm out of ammo, swap again like this and still kill things with Lord of Wolves. Just like we did. The only difference is I can't swap to spikier armor, which means people are just gonna run with spikier armor the entire time, more than likely. But this also means that the normal player isn't going to know you can do that. because they're just going to assume you're going to lose everything. Now, another thing that you're able to do is further swap to like Outbreak. Now, the problem here is if I start with a special weapon in this kinetic slot or in the primary slot, if I go from Mint Retrograde to like a Fatebringer or an Outbreak Perfected, if I run out of ammo, that will nuke everything. So just for demonstration purposes, I swap to Fatebringer and I lose everything because I swapped ammo types. But if I enter the encounter with a loadout that looks something like this, so instead of Mint Retrograde, I'm using Fatebringer or whatever, your favorite primary ammo weapon in this slot, if I'm like going through, so like, let's say like, what, do I have burns on this? Okay, so let me just show you, like if I started the encounter with this, and then I swapped, bam, and then Lord of Wolves, and then this is an empty class, so I'm gonna go ahead and use this as an example. So now let's say I'm in an encounter where it's super long and I need everything. So I'm running on my running class, bam, bam, bam. Okay, I'm gonna swap to my DPS class with my Acris, bam, bam, bam. I'm doing tons of damage. Oh, I'm out of Acris ammo. I'm gonna hot swap to Lord of Wolves here. Bam, bam, bam. Oh, I'm out of Lord of Wolves. Well, guess what? I can still swap because I'm using a kinetic the entire time, a primary the entire time. I can still swap to Outbreak. They didn't stop anything. I can just do that. What it does stop you from doing is exotic swapping. So if in between phases, I'm speaker sight, and it's like, okay, my team needs ammo, let me switch to Cenotaph, that'll nuke everything. I won't have ammo for my trace rifles, I won't have ammo for my heavy weapon, I won't have super, I won't have any abilities. But what it doesn't stop you from doing is swapping to the same type of class item. So, or not class item, exotic armor. So let's say I'm on Prismatic, where, this is my Lightning Surge class here, where I have an Inmost Light Synthoceps bond. Let's say I'm doing it, bam, 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 bam. And then, hey, it's almost DPS and I want to swap. And imagine I'm on Nova Bomb for this entire thing. And it's like, hey, it's almost DPS. Let me go ahead and swap to Apotheosis Star Eater and then pop my Nova Bomb. So if I had like a different loadout with that set up right here, so same thing, just a slightly different, here, let me do this. Same thing, just a different exotic class item. Because the exotic class items are technically the same piece of armor, you're fine. If I have a speaker sight, as it's worded currently and as Notswap worked in Rights of the Nine, if I have a speaker sight and I want to pop like for damage, I want a spikier one with more super or whatever, I can do that and it doesn't activate Notswap. So this only stops you from going special or to kinetic if you run out of ammo. And it stops you from doing things like Aeon swaps or speaker sight swaps. Or if you're on Titan, it stops you from doing like Kira swaps for Crest of Alpha Lupi, for instance. But it doesn't stop some of the most effective exotic swaps in the game. And it doesn't stop you from swapping exotic weapons as long as they use the same ammo type. It doesn't stop you from doing crazy ammo generation. If you swap to like Outbreak, like I can use, there's a world where I use Thunderlord for the final boss core Egos, and then I have a primary slot, so I weapon, I have Fatebringer, so I swap and I can still use Outbreak. Like that doesn't stop any of that. All this does is widen the knowledge gap between the 0.0001% and everyone else. If Bungie wants to effectively stop this, they need to lock loadouts when an encounter starts. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.